What is up, bros and broettes? I am Inkslasher, and today we're going to be talking about Call of Duty World War II, specifically whether or not there is going to be vehicles in multiplayer. Now, if you've seen the original trailer for Call of Duty World War II, it's interesting because much of the trailer focuses on vehicles, whether that be airplanes, tanks, or whatever. And the big question is in multiplayer in Call of Duty World War II, will there be vehicles? It's guaranteed, 100% guaranteed that in the single player there will be vehicles, but the question is, what about the multiplayer? So first of all, where does this question come from? It comes from this image right here. This was taken from the world reveal, and this is obviously Sledgehammer's office. Now in this picture, we can see someone actually playing Call of Duty World at War, and what seems to be driving some sort of vehicle. It doesn't really look like a tank, kind of just like a truck or something along those lines. And the question is this image in multiplayer, or is it in single player? My guess is that this is in single player, simply because there's no map on the screen, but of course they could be playing hardcore or something without a HUD, but my guess is that this image is taken from single player. The last Call of Duty game to support vehicles in their multiplayer was Call of Duty World at War, to a pretty thorough extent, to the point where in every single one of your class you were actually able to choose a vehicle perk, and that would be applied to the tanks when you would actually get in them. The only vehicle playable in that game was a tank itself. However, there were no airplanes, trains, or really any other type of vehicles. Tanks were the go-to. Now, the thing with the tanks in that game is they weren't on every single one of the maps, and because of this, the only maps that people wanted to actually play in Call of Duty World at War were the maps without tanks. Now, Call of Duty World at War came out about 10 years ago, and many of you may have actually not played Call of Duty World at War, but I'm sure there are plenty of you that actually did. And I'm pretty sure every single person who watches this video that actually played Call of Duty World at War will agree with me in saying they didn't really work properly in that game. The main thing that tanks actually did in Call of Duty World at War was simply slow down the maps. The reason being is because as soon as people would get into tanks, the infantry soldiers, or the people playing soldiers, would simply just avoid the area where tanks were completely and just slow down the game. And for those of you who are going to disagree with me and say tanks were awesome in that game, there's evidence to support my reasoning. The reason why I say this is, like I said, none of the maps that actually included tanks were rarely ever played because people simply would just leave the game if it were to happen. On top of that, if you look at the DLC maps for Call of Duty World at War, not a single DLC map in Call of Duty World at War included a tank. Not one of them. And since then, the only way vehicles were really included in any sort of way in Call of Duty games were as kill streaks. We've seen many different variations of kill streaks, whether that be an AC-130, a chopper gunner, or anything in between. We've seen many of those in Call of Duty games, but never just tanks that are sitting on the map, spawn in, and are waiting for you to play them. Until Call of Duty Black Ops 3. During Black Ops 3, it got a DLC map called Rupture, which had battle mechs on them. It just so happened to be that this map was a remake of a map from Call of Duty World at War, and what they did is replace tanks with battle mech. Now, the interesting thing about Rupture as a map in Black Ops 3 is that it's pretty easy to say that Rupture was one of the most hated maps to come out in Black Ops 3. Now, I'm not just going to narrow this down for battle mechs being on the map, and that's why people hated it. It was also a very large map, and it tended to be in Black Ops 3. People didn't like the very large maps. However, I do think the battle mechs played a large part why people just never wanted to play this map whatsoever. So it's pretty easy to say, based on these two circumstances, that vehicles that actually spawn into the map and are there pretty much constantly don't really work too well in Call of Duty games. At least whenever they've been implemented, they haven't been implemented well. Now, if it were up to me and it was based on my opinion, the only way vehicles would be implemented into Call of Duty multiplayer would be through kill streaks, score streaks, and that kind of thing. They would be earnable instead of just spawning on the map. That's the way I think vehicles kind of work best in Call of Duty. Does this mean that tanks, jeeps, and that kind of thing will not be playable in Call of Duty World War II? I say definitely not. They may actually be kill streaks. However, I think this means in the regular 6v6 Call of Duty multiplayer that we are used to, I don't really expect to see tanks or anything like that in that type of game, unless they are implemented in some sort of kill streak. However, not all hope is lost. This year in Call of Duty World War II, we are getting a brand new game mode called War, and as of right now, we don't really know what this game mode entails. However, we do know that it's not the same type of war that we played in Call of Duty World at War. That was later renamed to Momentum in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. The only thing as of right now that we really know about this new game mode is that it's going to be somewhat story-driven, yet at the same time, a multiplayer game mode. So, a lot of people are considering this to be something like Operations in Battlefield 1, where there's a storyline that goes with it, and it's kind of larger battles, where in these larger battles we'd be able to fly airplanes, be able to use tanks, jeeps, and vehicles, almost more like a Battlefield-esque style gameplay instead of Call of Duty. And to me, I'm not really convinced that that's actually what war is going to be. And the reason why I say that is what Call of Duty is known for is its fast, first-person shooter 6v6 gameplay. That's what Call of Duty is known for, and it's not really known for vehicles or these large-scale battles. That's what Battlefield is known as. And in recent years, Call of Duty has kind of tried to become their own beast, their own animal, instead of competing with Battlefield. But who knows, with Battlefield 1 coming out and Call of Duty going back to World War II, Call of Duty may be wanting to compete with Battlefield once again. The only other thing I have to say about this is back in Call of Duty World at War, there was originally going to be a game mode that was only going to be tanks versus tanks. When you spawned in, you'd spawn in as a tank and therefore only be able to play as a tank. This game mode was later removed and decided not to be a good part of the game as they wanted to focus on the infantry gameplay as opposed to the tank gameplay. This could be something that we actually see in Call of Duty World War II, a game mode something like Tank Warfare that's like a team deathmatch game style, but you use tanks or other vehicles. This could be something we see, because as we know, tanks and airplanes were a very large part of World War II, and as Glenn Schofield and Michael Condrey have said, they're trying to make this game as historically accurate as possible. But as far as my opinion goes, I very strongly believe that in our regular 6v6 gameplay, we're not going to see any sort of tank or airplane or jeep or anything like that. That might be something we actually see in Call of Duty World War II, but I'm going to leave the rest up to you guys. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you think there is going to be tanks, airplanes, or anything like that in Call of Duty World War II, or do you think it's just simply going to focus on that infantry combat? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, it would be fantastic if you'd hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button as I upload new Call of Duty videos every single day of the week. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, peace out.